When people think of the Spartan Navy, it's usually to think about how they must have resembled the village people. More effort in appearing macho than actually being macho. Okay, maybe that's just me. But certainly people tend to think of the Spartan Army as being the combine harvester to all the other armies' wheat, which is apt, considering how much time they spent burning down crops in Athens. The Spartan Navy, though, is often thought of as a bit of a joke, capable of being beaten by an angry swan, and likely to dissolve the second anything liquid so much as splashes on it, and it was a bit rubbish. Except when it wasn't. Yeah, that's a helpful comment, so let's explore it further in a video all about the Spartan Navy in 5 minutes or less. We'll skim the top of the Peloponnesian War. Don't worry, that'll be a video series in its own right soon enough. Put 5 minutes on the clock. While it may be difficult to take the events of the Iliad as being historically accurate, there's a few too many gods wandering around for it to feel anything more than a much better prequel to the Percy Jackson stories. That should piss a few historians off. It does touch on a number of historical points, not least that the Spartans sent out 60 ships as part of the invasion. So we see that even if this number isn't right, Homer did at least consider there being a Spartan navy worth mentioning in the Mycenaean past. Ancient writers such as Eusebius and his supposedly copied list of sea powers, which I'm sure he would have turned into a top 10 video on YouTube if he were alive today, claim Sparta had the most powerful navy for a brief period of time in the 6th century. Whilst this is doubtful, it does show that the Spartan navy was still well thought of. So when did it get so bad that a rubber duck armed with a spear could beat it? Honestly, it never did. It suffers by comparison to the Athenian navy, its enemy in the Peloponnesian War, but the Athenian navy was as powerful as a whole flock of Canadian geese, and could more than go toe-to-toe, or stern-to-stern, with Persia, so it's not a fair comparison. By the time of the Persian invasion, Sparta had replaced its biremes and pentacontrary ships with triremes, a much more powerful version, a full 10 years before Athens did. At the invasion of 490, they sent 16 triremes to battle the Persians, the 5th largest number of ships, behind Athens, who sent 200, Corinth, who sent 40, and 2 others who are important but don't come up again in my script, so Sodom. It's important to note Corinth here. The Spartan Army was powerful but easily outnumbered, so it relied on its allies in the Peloponnesian League to help boost its ranks, because what's the point of being super elite troops if you've got no one to feel superior to? The Navy, though, was even more dramatic. Just, not superior. A small but important difference. By the time of the Peloponnesian War, the navy of all its allies were effectively acting as a Spartan navy. At the kick-off to the first part of the Peloponnesian War, in 431 BC, Sparta and its allies could muster about 120 ships. Athens, by contrast, had about 300. Sparta itself considered the navy to be problematic in terms of funding. The Spartan army was a professional army as they had the helot slaves work in the lands, so the public funding was never a consideration. Navies don't work like that. Sailors need to pay for their happy ending somehow. And so Sparta started the Peloponnesian War with no real nautical tradition, a lack of understanding of how navies work, poor public finances, and a few ducks short of a raft. That is what a group of ducks on the water is called. I looked it up, so that's something you now know. But they had allies, and some of those allies had strong maritime traditions, such as Corinth, once a dominant naval power in all of Greece. You can tell because Corinth was famous for having thousands of prostitutes. However, Corinth and Co. could only do so much. The issue was a lack of ships, a lack of trained crews, and a lack of money. Oh, and Sparta knowing how to use a navy in the same way I know how to build a space rocket. Triremes were, essentially, giant floating battering rams. You can ignore anything films or games tell you about ranged weapons. They were nothing more than a token effort. These ships were made to smash other ships apart. Head on. So to utilise them properly, you needed to work in tandem with other ships, in order to ensure you're not smashed in the side while trying to smash into another ship. It was basically synchronised swimming, but with giant weapons designed to smash other swimmers to pieces, which should be an Olympic sport if you ask me. The Athenians were excellent at this, having full choreographed routines worked out. Sparta, meanwhile, was still trying to work out how to turn the music on. In short, they didn't have a clue what they were doing. The first half of the Peloponnesian War, the Archimedean War, saw Sparta trying to get ships, 500 of the buggers, from various sources, with no real success. They begged the Sicilians, the Italian cities, and the Persians, all of whom did an impression of a magic 8-ball and said to ask again later. In order to get their navy up to a force capable of challenging Athens, they had a massive to-do list, but, like any good husband when a wife presents him with a list of jobs to do, they half-arsed all of it and achieved a square total of naff all. They tried to capture important naval ports, to pay for revolts and to start colonies, but all they really managed to achieve was burning down some crops in Attica whilst the population hid behind defensive walls. The plagues in Athens were more effective than the Spartan strategy, by sea or land. It also saw them get slapped around the Mediterranean by Athens because, like a heavily religious male love interest in a crappy rom-com, they kept not fully committing and lacked the experience to do anything even when they tried. Dithering cost them a few ships here, a few ships there, and before they knew it, they were adrift at sea and the Jaws theme music had just started playing. In 425 BC, Sparta managed to lose a naval battle at Pylos, which had the knock-on effect of 120 Spartans and 180 allied troops being stranded on an island then captured by the Athenians. To get them back, Sparta had to hand Athens 60 triremes as a measure of good faith, and get them back later. Athens, of course, kept both the ships and the prisoners, decimating the Spartan Navy. A few years later, after some Spartan army wins on land, we get the Peace of Nicaea in 421 BC. It ended up just being a half-time break for both sides to get a breather and some orange slices. It was also during this period that Alcibiades sailed with an armada for Sicily and then promptly legged it to Sparta to avoid being arrested for castrating deities. He was to help advise Sparta on important things like paying their sailors and sleeping with queens. Corinth also tried to break away from Sparta during this time, which would have been the end of the current Spartan Navy, such a sorry state as it was. But political manoeuvrings kept Corinth firmly in Sparta's orbit. In 414 BC, the second half of the Peloponnesian War officially kicks off. But now the Persians were involved, and they backed Sparta, because Sparta had sold out the Ionian Greeks in Asia, saying that Persia could go back to taxing them after the war. The Ionian Greeks had been paying Athens protection money up until this point. With that came the funds needed to build triremes, about 180 of them, to fund crews from all over Greece and further afield. It also enabled them to go shopping at Plans R Us, so they could go out with a new mission, one with something approaching a strategy. They started capturing Athenian ports and dockyards, each capture of which reduced the Athenian naval strength and added to their own. Turns out that ships don't care which side is using them, and sailors mostly care about who's funding their happy endings. Bit by bit, they're able to whittle down the Athenian sea advantage, culminating in a decisive battle in Agos Potami in 405 BC, which broke any chance Athens had of winning the war, of achieving something of a balanced peace, or even being allowed walls. At the end of the war, in 404, the peace treaty reduced the Athenian navy to 12 triremes and broke up its empire. It's always sad to see a once mighty democratic power with a powerful navy be reduced to a shadow of their former selves. Wait, no it's not. Sod empires. With their main enemy now low on ships and funds, and Persia now withdrawing funding, Sparta slowly reduced its naval power, proving, once and for all, that as good as Sparta was at PR and war, it never learned its lessons. They briefly upped it again during the Corinthian War of 395 BC, after getting their navy slapped around in the Battle of Cnidius, again built with Persian funding. That was after Persia switched sides from funding the anti-Spartan alliance, who included Athens in their number. Presumably they'd been taking notes when Alcibiades was their advisor. Sparta slowly reduced the navy again after they managed to force peace. Learning lessons is for children, not hyper-macho village people members. The real death blow to the navy happened because of its army. In 371 BC, the army lost heavily to Thebes. The naval allies that had been supporting Sparta abandoned it. They had seen rats deserting sinking ships before and decided to do the same. Without their expertise and manpower, Sparta was horribly alone and became a navy capable of losing to 2 men in a dinghy. Almost. Stop the clock! Well, that dragged on past the arbitrary 5-minute mark, but I didn't want to leave out the bit about prostitutes, so here we are. What it does show us is that Sparta had a navy worth talking about, when you also take into account its allies in the Peloponnesian League. But since its army also needed that proviso, and are lauded as being the best military in the ancient world, surely we should cut their navy the same break. It also, briefly, became the leading navy in all of Greece. Yes, it sucked at times. Yes, it was often poorly led, but so is insert country or sports team of your choice, and you keep supporting them anyway. Thanks for watching. Like if you like, subscribe if you haven't. If you enjoyed the bit about Alcibiades, then check out our video all about him, and he does make it all about him.